How many of you like science? How many of you think you know something about science? Now, not too surprising to most people, is I like science very much, and I pride myself on being relatively scientifically literate. Now, when I say scientifically literate, that's kind of a misnomer. Because the one thing I hate is when people use science to disprove science. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, science is a great many things. There are earth sciences and physical sciences and social sciences. There's chemistry and geology and astronomy and nuclear physicists and astrophysicists, and there's all kinds of scientists. And quite often people use science from one field to make a comment about science from another field, like global warming, or as I like to call it, global climate change. It's a real thing. It's actually happening, and how much we have to do with it is debatable, but it is a real phenomenon. Now, they say there are scientists that disagree with global warming. Well, yeah, I'm sure there's probably some social scientists and maybe even zoological scientists that disprove or disagree with global warming. But they don't really know about global warming. That's not their field of study. They may be a scientist, but that doesn't mean they're a scientist about environmental conditions. And vaccines. Vaccines is a big thing right now. The measles outbreak at Disney sounds almost ridiculous. There are people who complain about vaccines, that they don't really help. And when there's a measles outbreak, it's funny. All those people who were vaccinated against measles, they didn't get measles. All those idiots who didn't get their kids vaccinated, they got measles. Well, not all of them, obviously, but there are scientists who don't think vaccinations are as important as they are touted to be. Those scientists have nothing to do with health. They are scientists, but they are not scientists in the health field. They have no say in vaccines, and they're scientists that have no say in global warming. Yet people point to them and say, these scientists say these things are not true. Well, that's really irritating because science is a great thing. Science helps us. Science helps everything. And yes, science destroys things, and science makes life worse for many people. Science leads to destructive things. But you can't say scientists and mean all sciences. You can't talk about the scientists who, created the atom bomb when there are earth scientists and geologists and social scientists that had nothing to do with anything like that. And they're still scientists. So when you say science is bad, you have to clarify which sciences are bad, because there are hundreds of different sciences. You can't say science is bad because science is good. Science helps things. But science leads to things that might be bad for some people. Science is a very broad term that encompasses a lot of fields of study. So don't use science to disprove science when you don't even know what science is. Scientific method. Most people don't know what that is. It is a process of discovering truths by experimentation that is repeatable and I can't think of the word, documentable? No, that's not the word, but can be documented. Science cannot prove or disprove God. God is mythology. Science cannot weigh in on mythology because those are just stories that people make up. You can't prove or disprove something that has nothing that can be documented or have an experiment that is repeatable. God doesn't exist when it comes to science. And I guess that's the reason why a lot of people distrust science, because science can't weigh in on their beliefs. And beliefs, well, they don't enter into science. Now, they enter in on scientists because scientists are people, and people have beliefs. And yes, those beliefs sometimes creep into the scientific studies, and sometimes they taint's not the right word, but they they cloud the judgment of the scientist. But that doesn't mean the science is bad. That means the scientist has lost their way and have failed to hold up the truth which science is trying to unfold. Science helps us. Science advances us. And to distrust science is a fool's errand. It is reversing the advancement of social sciences. If we give up on science, we're going backwards. Science has taken us to some bad places, but the more we know, the more we can avoid those bad places. So we need scientists, and we need to encourage kids to be interested in science. Science is not something to be mistrusted. And don't use science as an excuse to distrust science, because that's just silly. You have to understand science, and you have to understand that science covers a very broad range of things. And you can't point to a Christian scientist and say, he's a scientist and he says that such and such is not true. When you're a scientist based on the Bible, you're basically you're faking it. I mean, you're a philosopher. But science is good. And kids should be interested in science. And they should be encouraged to be interested in science. Because science will ultimately save us if it doesn't kill us. Anyways, I'm Tom, your friendly neighborhood atheist, and trust science. Scientists, maybe not so much, but science, you can trust that.